Now this looks like a lot because the passage is kind of squished there because I needed to get these very long answer choices on the screen. But don't worry too much about these questions. It's still the same kind of main idea thing that we've been doing earlier on in the section. It's just now it's kind of rearranged and reworded, but the process is the same. Let's get a dumb summary, but let's focus on what we are being tasked to do here. Which quotation from a work by a historian would be the most effective evidence for the student to include in support of his claim? Rarely, but occasionally these questions flip it and do a kind of like undermine or weaken the claim. So it's just important we know what we're doing. But basically, let's just find what the student's claim is, and then hopefully we can like summarize it in some simple way. In 1967, the U.S. Congress created the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which in turn created National Public Radio. NPR began producing and distributing high-quality news and cultural programming to affiliate stations across the United States in 1971. In a research paper, a student claims, notice all that stuff before was just intro. Here's the meat of the passage. In a research paper, a student claims that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and NPR were inspired by the British broadcasting system, which had been established in the 1920s. So NPR, or how about we do this? BBC led to NPR, right? Just little symbols. And remember, you have scrap paper for the digital SAT, even in the reading section. So write things down so that you don't have to keep all these complicated ideas in your head. Just write down some little symbols so you've got something to look back on as you're going through these very long answer choices. So trying to support that idea. Let's just see what we can get. A, although the BBC had begun as a private corporation, politicians successfully argued to make it a public company because they believed a public broadcaster could help build national unity in the aftermath of World War I. Well, it's about the BBC, but does it say anything about NPR? I don't think so. So I don't know. I feel like it should, but it doesn't seem related to that. So I don't know, probably wrong. Let's just keep going, see if anything gets better. B, for many decades, the BBC had no competition since it held Britain's only broadcasting license, whereas in the United States, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting launched NPR in a broadcasting market already filled with competitors. So we're trying to create like a positive relationship between these two things, saying that the BBC inspired, right? Inspired is the word they chose, NPR. This seems to be getting more of a negative, right? The whereas, it's filled with competitors. So if this is relating the two, it seems to be the wrong connotation. Again, it has nothing to do with being inspired by it or having it as like the reason for it existing in the first place, NPR. So again, it doesn't seem to also hit that other idea of like causing it to become an idea that the US would put in place. So there's a lot of things I don't like about this choice, but if we can simplify it down to just connotations, that's okay. It might help us clarify when there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the choice. Let's look at C. Congress's embrace of publicly funded broadcasting reflected a common belief among U.S. politicians that the role of government was not only to ensure people's safety and liberty, but also to enrich people's lives in other ways. Well, this is almost the opposite of A, so I think this is wrong for the same reason. This is about the U.S., so this is kind of about NPR, but where does it talk about the BBC at all? It seems to be missing out part of the student's claim, so I don't know. It doesn't seem right. Let's look at D. The goal of the BBC was to support British democracy by promoting an informed citizenry, and U.S. legislators believed that ensuring access to high-quality programming could do the same for democracy in the United States. So they built a BBC for the US, which was NPR, right? So this is definitely the choice. It talks about both of them. Now, I know it doesn't say NPR explicitly, but they're very clearly talking about the British and the US here. And it's saying that they kind of followed in that lead, right? They believe that ensuring access to high-quality programming could do the same for democracy in the United States, and that's why NPR came into existence. So it's definitely D. This is a good example, too, where I'm not going to reread things that I already know are wrong or suspected of being wrong. One of the biggest problems people have in the reading section is they just can't admit when they're right. So there's no reason to go back here. We had a very clear summary to start. We have an answer choice that checks all those boxes. The others fall short. I don't need to revisit them and just be absolutely sure. Because I had a good summary to start, I have a good connection with that summary now, I know that I'm right. So if you need to come back, you can always bookmark things, but this is not a case where I would even bookmark this. I am sure that D is right, so just be okay with having good reasoning in a process and then, move on when you've got your answer.